All right. So when Carol talks about multiple challenges, I think all telcos face them. The fact is, at Vodafone, we have 26 of them, okay? And they range in territories as diverse as New Zealand, India, South Africa, and the UK, just to name a few. What I'd like to do today is just take a few minutes, and it will be a brief conversation, and share some proof points to date in a little bit of an exclamation point around execution. Not about so much vision, not about where we're going, because I think you're getting a lot of that today. But what I'd really like to do is talk about how we're solving today's challenges with tomorrow's investment to make sure that we actually accelerate along this path, not because it's a cool technology thing to do, but because fundamentally it is the most effective way to enable the change that our customers seek from us on a day-to-day basis, okay? So first of all, our overall corporate strategy is really about creating the gigabit society. And we've highlighted 4 elements of that gigabit society. And why gigabit? That's a very technical term. And believe it or not, it wasn't the technical community that really came up with that. But it was really a shorthand to talk about a dramatic shift in what we need to do to change the paradigm and really deliver the ability so that actually the act of being on the network recedes to the back. And the ability to partake of disruptive new services is really what the customers worry about and are excited about. So the first one is the world's largest mobile operator outside of China. Obviously, you would expect us to assert 4G and its evolution to 5G, okay? And not in the overhype way that it's often talked about, but just a very careful and thoughtful way of how do you bring the new services to customers that they seek, of bringing fiberization, bringing true next generation transformative broadband to society at large. And what we're doing there is Europe's largest, or rather fastest growing fixed broadband provider. Talking about cloud and the transformation that that has begun to bring to us in the IT cloud and what it means to really bring that in the converged cloud. And then finally, the Internet of Things. And because this is about the transformation around the network, I wanted to highlight a couple of things. First and foremost, the vision and future of 5G, its agility, its scale, everything else is only actually feasible in a cloudified world, right? And when we think about the evolution of 4G and 5G, they bring to us, and we just heard about it, the transformational effect of ultra-low latency, highly reliable communications, of enhanced mobile broadband, and of huge scale in terms of connectivity. In fiberization, it's a largely, having served as CTO of a couple of wireline groups, it's a down-in-the-dirt activity where actually your cost structures are determined more by planning permissions, by the dirt itself, and by the manpower than anything else. But actually talking about the services layer, which is what we care about, is all enabled through the transformation to cloud. And especially when you get into the flexibility and agility we need to provide in terms of what gets provided to customers in terms of the flexibility of multi-service capabilities through universal CPE and similar techniques is really important to us. In cloud is this fusion of IT and network. It's always interesting to me that telco is the only industry that actually separates the two. For most of the rest of the industry, it's kind of ICT, it's the fusion of it, and that's really what we try to embody in our cloud. It is a hybrid cloud. It's a mixture of public and private where the balance is unpredictable. And frankly, we should not be religious about how much is on public and how much is on private, but more about are we delivering the services that our customer needs at an economic point that they can actually procure, okay? And then finally, the Internet of Things. This is the world's largest IoT connectivity provider. We are already using virtualized systems both to expand our global footprint and support our ability to seamlessly roam around the planet and to provide in every geography, even those that we don't operate directly in. But it's also how we're launching the new solutions for narrowband and low power wide area, which are the completion, if you will, of the spectrum of next generation IoT. So overall, cloud virtualization, whatever you want to call this transformation to software that we're in the middle of, we're actually seeing it permeate all 4 of our major transformative agendas, okay? And Project Ocean is really the, if you will, the unifying strategy around how that makes sense. Because what we have to provide is a path that is able to be made relevant and unique to a country like India, and similarly extend through reuse and learnings into a country that's dramatically different like Germany and vice versa. But most importantly, it's really about how do we, what we started the day talking about, how do we really foster what matters, which is interoperability, scalability, and agility, as opposed to getting caught up in the religious fervor of, is it OpenStack, is it VMware, is it, pick your three-letter acronym, whatever it is, or 4 letters now, because more and more of them are, okay? If you look at our leading operating companies, and I probably should have extended this graph into the left side into 2013 and 2014 when we first started scaling up to the degree of serving, a couple 100,000 million subscribers. We're now serving in our leading operating companies tens of millions of subscribers already with virtualized service applications, okay? Virtualization is widely deployed across our group, and in some markets, we're actually doubling our objective for this year's achievement, okay? As we look at it, most of our applications are deployed, most of our workloads are deployed on VMware still. We are working with the OpenStack community and bringing that in and making it so truly we are completely agnostic operationally and otherwise about which Vim, and opening the door as well to containers and beyond, okay? Orchestration, which to me becomes the holy grail of true value, is what we're working on now with what's possible, and then we're actively participating in how does the orchestration animal evolve and get standardized so that actually it becomes the true defining force in the automation of the customer experience when networks are involved, okay? Multiple vendors are engaged, and in fact, if you know us well, we buy a little bit from almost everyone, depending on which country you're in. And unifying all of those vendors to a common vision, a common set of interoperability principles and so forth is a huge, huge activity. Building the right models so we can be policy driven in all of our service provision is really, really critical. And also, right, one of the unspoken about aspects of this is how do we find a business model that's a win-win? This is a disruption, and it's a disruption on 2 dimensions. One is it's a disruption of our supply chain, of our carrier ecosystem providers, and it's also a disruption of us. So finding a business model that lets us actually navigate that disruption is really crucial to us and should not be treated without a bit of formality and creativity, okay? We're also really working hard to make sure that we've got a broad set of use cases that are proven in multiple instances that are optimized through learnings. We're taking that very simple crawl, walk, run approach to let's prove it in a couple of markets, then let's expedite its replication through others so we can deliver the broadest possible benefits to our customers, okay? And making sure here that we're actually driven out of not our imagination of where the demand is, but out of the reality. So we're finding quite a lot of traction in just applying new capacity or new service needs to the challenge to be able to know where to apply these solutions and potentially where to hold back, okay? And then finally, the whole motivation here is to differentiate the customer experience. We know better than others that what we're doing in many cases is undershooting the expectations of our customers, and those expectations are getting more and more stringent, right? And so we're stepping up dramatically so that you're actually giving the customer the ability, and you're actually becoming then more ingrained in their daily activities. And it's when we actually participate in real-time interactions where we recognize the customer is in a certain situation, and we can provide to them an offer that lets them actually interact, accept that offer, and then have it change the network's configuration around them, which is something that we do today in a few of our leading markets. That's a really powerful capability, okay? And our customers, where they see that, are beginning to resonate with it, okay? It is a bit of a surprise in terms of that we would offer that, but it's really important overall that whether it's a cost savings or a revenue generating business case, that our business cases fairly consistently, and we'll watch them quite carefully, are generally fitting our expectations or better across the transformation, okay? So when I start with proof points, let me just highlight this, and I could have also used the graph that shows across all of our operating companies, how are we performing against our objectives on transformation? And you know what? It's about what you would expect. More than half, roughly half to more than half are at or above the adoption rate targets that we would want. And then you trail off from there to some that are just starting, and so it's okay where they are. And then a middle pack that's actually getting close to target, and we hope to close that, right? And in fact, the big jump this coming year is actually expected as we've got a couple of the big services coming online that we actually make some of that happen for our customers. So we're really excited about it. We focused initially across the core and services domain, not unlike others. It's the easiest place, right? So we've got an overall hierarchy that we seek, where actually you start obviously with Gen 1, the physical, right? That's well deployed. That's what we've always done. You've got Gen 2, which is virtualized. Gen 2.5, which we call cloud ready, which is also virtualized, but it also has automation, orchestration, common virtual infrastructure management, et cetera. Then you've got cloud native, which is actually the evolution of that to a separate user and control and data structure, microsystems, opening up the opportunity for containers and so forth. And then you've got the completion, right? None of our markets are yet complete, not a surprise. To actually provide cloud-ready solutions coming in. In fact, this past year, we took a decision to actually restructure our metrics so that it's cloud-ready or cloud-native as the requirement. It's no longer sufficient to just virtualize, because that's not where the real benefit comes, okay? Now, we expect some of that to propagate down into the lower layers, but at the same time, where our focus is really looking at those that dramatically change the customer experience and focus on those, okay? Now, an interesting thing, we've been a fairly vocal voice about cloud native, okay? And the reason for this is I think that it's the only way that you strike that balance between speed, agility, and innovation, and simple, reliable code and architecture, right? The complexity of telecoms is already too high. Layering onto it the transformation of this into software creates a situation where if you just think about version control and version management across the entire system, it becomes brutal, okay? We think cloud native is the way to begin to navigate that. Now, what's interesting is in our most recent benchmark, the bars on the top are all of those vendors that are scaled virtualized across our network, rated against performance characteristics of our requirements against virtualization cloud ready, okay? The bar below, or the graph below, shows those same vendors by color code. By the way, you cannot decipher vendor color by, so if you want that, it's not up for grabs, right? What we find is what actually you would expect, which is there are a few of the leaders that are strong in both, but you also find that some who are strong in virtualization probably think they get to stop there, and we don't believe that's feasible. We think you have to follow through to cloud native, okay? And so what you see is actually a number of those that are on the front end trailing back as you start to rank them against cloud readiness. And across the board, we would love to see more traction in the cloud native, okay? And why? Again, simplicity, reliability, and agility. Cloud ready gets you half of the way, maybe even 2/3 of the way. But we're competing against a cloud native set of competitors in the hyperscalers and in the startup domain. And there's nothing quite like being 2/3 of the way done with a race when the winner finishes, okay? So we need to march forward to cloud native, okay? And we're beginning to finally see those roadmaps coming in so that they're within our grasp, okay? But overall, I think that there's a huge opportunity for us as telco to make the shift and really overall drive it in terms of, you know, what's going to matter for our customers. We think we're putting the right use cases in hand. Many of our newest services, whether it's our TV launch this past year, which is quite successful in Spain, whether it is the activities that we're doing around our first in the world launch of narrowband Internet of Things, whether it is, you know, our new smart pricing capabilities for which we won a GSMA Innovation Award, all of these things have core tenets built on software virtualization, okay? And tomorrow, as we orchestrate and as we connect over a common cloud, which is work still in progress, we think that we fundamentally begin to then converge the offer, which is actually crucial to compete in certain markets, and we expect it to be inevitable in most of our markets, if not all of them, okay? We still have a bit more work to do in terms of how do we validate market-by-market use cases. What I would say is that if you look at the top 40 or 50 VNF use cases, service use cases, we're highly confident that we can demonstrate those in production in one or more of our markets. Practically all of them. There are one or two we're still working on. We won't get into that here, but we expect them to be addressed this year. Okay? So now what it's about is how do you actually orchestrate, automate, converge, and drive at scale? So the areas where we're focusing next in terms of technology evolution, and I won't say we're starting our focus now, it's that they're finally coming online this coming year, are going to be the orchestration enablement, are going to be finally the broadening of OpenStack with the eventual succession beyond that. And then finally as well, you know what? It's also starting this journey to cloud native. So hopefully that gives just a very brief punctuation mark into the world of execution from a multi-opco perspective. Because I think while we talk a little bit about hype and a lot about vision, sometimes we talk too little about traction and reality and what happens when the hands get dirty and you actually find out, does this stuff scale? It scales. It certainly delivers the services capabilities, and the agility, it's becoming the norm for how we respond to new market opportunities. And with that, I thank you for the time, really appreciate it, and wish we had more time to dialogue, but have a great day. Thank you.